Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis, and we are getting you ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals Week 18 showdown, the regular season finale at Acrisure Stadium on Saturday night. Dave, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's been more than a week since we've seen the Steelers playing a game and saying what we saw last time wasn't that great. It's a little bit more time to recover, and it really is on to Cincinnati.
That's right. I needed that break from the Steelers after the crap fest we've had to watch the last 3 weeks. But Bryan Davis, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Crap fest, Jeff. Are you saying that, or did they say that?
I said
that's it. I'm out of here. If you don't know, you'll know. I'm doing well, guys. I had to go ahead pick at Pickens, but I'm doing well. I'm glad it's 2025. I'm looking for bigger and better things from us here at Steel Curtain Network and Fans First Sports Network, and I'm so glad to have you all with us. I'm looking for bigger things from the Pittsburgh Steelers too, and it's to take something that I was using that I heard Mike Tomlin use it too. I think the term of the week is stench, and it's time to go ahead and wipe the stench off.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I hope everyone out there that's watching or listening has had a good start to their 2025. Happy New Year to you, gentlemen. And let's see if the Steelers can kind of turn the corner here and start their year off on the right note. Let's talk about something first before we get it. We'll get into the Pickens stuff that Bryan mentioned. Were you surprised when the NFL announced the schedule for Week 18 that they set up the Ravens and Browns before the Steelers and Bengals played based on the significance of the division? Dave, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. Or was I surprised? Not overly, because to me, no matter what, in that second game, you're going to have a team playing for something, because Cincinnati is playing for a win to have a chance to stay in it, regardless of what happens at 4:30. If the Steelers and Cincinnati played at 4:30 and the Bengals won, then there was really nothing that had any consequence in that second game. So that's why you do it the order you did it.
Yeah, that's fair. Bryan, what about you?
Yeah, Dave's absolutely correct. I am definitely not surprised about Saturday. We have been saying that for months. Dave and I were discussing it, offline a couple of months ago when we were talking about this game coming up, because after a Wednesday game, they weren't going to give the Steelers that extra day. They're already having a mini bye. They're not giving the Ravens that extra game either. So extra day either. So, I kind of feel I knew it was going to be Saturday. When I saw 8:00, I was like, ugh. But you got to put it that way, because it's all about us and watching. And who do you want in prime time even more? You want a team that's really hot right now and a perennial ratings grabber in the Pittsburgh Steelers, against that hot team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Then they didn't even know it was going to be Bailey Zappi, or whether it was DTR. Actually, I think Zappi's an improvement over DTR for the Browns, but you don't want to put the
Steelers.
you don't want to put the Browns in prime time.
So I think for me, and I'm not looking ahead, this is just a scheduling question. Dave does schedules all the time. What do you think the NFL is going to do with the Steelers playoff game? Will they play on Saturday? Or will they play on Sunday and give them an extra day? I'm curious. I think they're going to put them on Saturday. What do you think, Dave?
It depends where they play. If they have to go to Baltimore, I can all but guarantee that's going on Saturday, since they both just played on Saturday.
Right. So what if they go to Houston?
If they go to Houston,
someone's either going to get an extra day or someone's going to get a short week.
Yeah. So I could see it being Saturday no matter what. Going to Houston, I could see that. Honestly, I want the Steelers to play Sunday at 1:00 when God intended NFL football to be played, because they play that. I mean, they've done well at 1:00 on Sunday. But what I want and what they'll actually do, you're probably right. Just please don't put them on Monday. I think whatever team plays on Monday has a huge disadvantage anyway, because of going into the next week. I don't know. The next week doesn't matter if you don't win, but
Yeah.
I don't think they would let them go from Saturday to Monday. That's one good thing about it. So I would say 65-35 of Saturday versus Sunday.
You got to think, though. I need to jump in here, too. You know that the winner of the NFC, you know that big extravaganza there, whoever actually ends up being the loser, because the winner's going to get a bye. But they are definitely probably going to get a Sunday game since they're a Sunday night. I would think that
Monday.
Or Monday. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting about that Monday. They'll probably get pushed there to give, because that's significant amount of time. Remember, Mike Tomlin made such a big deal out of it that Antonio Brown FaceTime lived it back in 2017, and that caused a big problem. And so this means something. Mike Tomlin can say, we don't care all we want, but behind closed doors, they cared back in that game before the AFC Championship game. That was weather aided, though, too. That was supposed to be a little earlier, but it was still weather aided. But we're not talking about that now. We're talking about this weekend and next weekend. I would probably think it's a Saturday.
That's interesting. All right, so let's talk about this game first. And this is a game which I think it depends on who you talk to. I mean, there's some fans, there's an entire group of the fan base that just thinks the Steelers are going to lose no matter what. They're going to lose the next 2 games. They're going to go into the offseason 5 losses in a row. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. But there's a group of people that think that this game doesn't really matter as much. They want to win, but it's more just how you're playing in the playoffs. I tend to lean on the side of you want to use this as a springboard into the playoffs. You want to play well. You should play well. They have an extended break. So, yes, they were worn down from the 3 games in 11 days, and I know they weren't the only team that had to deal with that. But, man, this is a big game for me. I cannot poo-poo this Week 18 game against the Bengals for so many reasons. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you can't just be playing a bad brand of football for numerous weeks in a row, especially when you get a little reset in there. This is huge, having this mini bye right before Week 18. That's a big advantage. If you come out of that and you still look like you're doing more of the same, how are you thinking you're just going to turn it on for the postseason? It's all, Coach Tomlin keeps saying 2 is a trend with various things. Well, do you really you think you're going to start a new trend going into the postseason with better competition? No, you need to. I mean, I'd love to just say, well, play well, and if you don't win the game, but against the Bengals, you should be the better team. Yes, they have Joe Burrow, who I think is the best quarterback in the NFL right now, but to me, overall, you're a better team. So if you play well, you should win, even though they're underdogs.
Yeah, that's fair. Brian, what do you think?
There's a lot of people that, as you mentioned, are going to disagree on this, but I think this is a playoff game. This has to be treated like a playoff game because you're facing psychological warfare, and you're going in. If you're going in as a 4-game loser going into there, then you are playing more of a desperate brand of ball, and a desperate brand of ball is different than urgency. There's a good kind of urgency. Desperate is scary. Desperate blows up in your face a lot. So if you look at the difference between the two, I want them to go in on Saturday night urgent so they can go into the playoffs with a controlled urgency to win. But if they have to go in desperate, it's gonna bamboozle them, and I don't think they want that whatsoever. Also, I think this team's gonna take pride if they win in knocking the Bengals out of the playoffs. But I was thinking, they probably wouldn't run into the Bengals until the AFC Championship game if they both got there. The Bengals being in the playoffs would probably they're one team that has always had Kansas City's number, but they've had Buffalo's number in the playoffs in the last couple of years in the snow. So it might be interesting to have the Bengals in there, but no, you've got to go ahead and win, eliminate them. You've got to have that victory. You got to go in as competitors, not tails between the legs and just like let's just get this over with and go home.
Yeah, I think that even if the Steelers weren't, I know Week 18, the NFL always puts divisional games for a reason, but even if it was a non-divisional opponent, I think this game, the Steelers, it doesn't matter. The opponent doesn't matter. It's how are they playing?
Yes.
How are they going into the playoffs? And so this is why I wrote this article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com, and it ran today, Thursday. So if you're listening to this on Friday, you can still go and check it out. And the question that I asked was, what does an appropriate response for the Steelers look like in Week 18? Because everyone's talking about, like, well, how are they going to respond? 3-game losing streak. Okay, they got a little break. What's the response going to be? You know, I think there's some people that would say the Steelers need to blow out the Bengals. There's some that would say just a win is going to suffice. And then there's probably a fan base that believes that no matter what happens, they're going to lose out. So what would an appropriate response look like to you is the question. Dave, I'm going to have you go first.
Well, if you listen to Pittsburgh Standard Time, you should know that the answer is going to be don't suck in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
They've been getting crushed. They've been giving up tons of points. I mean, I did it even with the final 20 minutes over the last 3 games. But if you just look back for a while, they haven't been scoring points in the fourth quarter, and they've been giving up a lot of points in the fourth quarter. My goodness, it was the last time the Steelers had a shutout in the fourth quarter was in Washington coming out of the bye. They've been giving up, and over with a lot of those other games, it's been multiple scores, double-digit scores. They're giving up in the fourth quarter, and they're not scoring in the fourth quarter. That's been the issue, is that they've been getting crushed worse at the end of the game than they have been at the beginning of the game. And we know how starting it off has not been well. So I'd love to say, more than anything, I'd love to see them start better than they have been. But as much as I would like to see that, I'm still not going to feel good until they actually finish.
Yeah, that's fair. Bryan, what about you? What would a good response look like to you?
A good response would be taking this Joe Burrow-led offense and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and keeping them under 20 and winning. I think that would be the kind of response that you would feel, yes, baby, we're back. I think that's kind of what you want to look at here. You want to go ahead and put the ball in the end zone 2+ times, preferably 3 in this game, and you just want an all-around solid effort. There's going to be mistakes, but start limiting the turnovers, limit the bad luck. And I feel like, I don't know whether I was thinking it was bad luck, but then it was starting to be just complete mental breakdowns. But if you go back to the Philadelphia and Baltimore, those 2 games, they were hanging around and they were making moves where you thought, hey, they're wiping the stench off of the first half, and then the third quarter they looked good, and then they fell apart, like Dave said, in the fourth quarter. So if you can have a complete ball game and just lessen all of the mental errors that have been plaguing you, but number 1 win, even if something happens that you don't win in the manner you want to, but you win. Right now, it's just take that W, baby, and that's what you have to have right now.
Yeah, good, Dave.
Well, and even though they lost by double digits in the last 3 games, as I've pointed out, they won the middle 20 minutes of all 3 of those games. So they've shown they can play with those teams. They just can't play 60 minutes with those teams. So, Bryan, you're very right with everything you're saying. It's just this is their chance to get it together. And that's why it was so frustrating to hear players talk about week 1 mistakes that they're making in week 17, because that's not, you're supposed to progress to that. And there are no more excuses, because it should be all hands on deck.
Yeah. I often ask myself this, and I asked Jeremy Betsis on our Let's Ride podcast that's going to debut tomorrow, Friday morning. Is it nothing more than injuries? Like, when you think about it, okay, so yeah, they beat the Browns without George Pickens. The Browns is the Browns, as Juju Smith-Schuster eloquently put it one year. And I just think that, when you think about, okay, they don't have a lot of playmakers on that side of the football. When you lose your only one, what are you going to do? And when you played a good defense, like a really good team, and you had to go toe-to-toe, you couldn't sustain it. They figured it out. Like Dave said, the last section of the game, last 20 minutes was awful. Then the defense, you lose Deshaun Elliott. And I think we all recognize how great he's been playing, but maybe we didn't realize how important he was to the defense. So you lose both of those playmakers on both sides of the ball. Oh, and then TJ Watt gets hurt. And I know he's played, but you cannot tell me if you watch these games that TJ Watt is 100% and that he's healthy. And then you put all this together in a 3 games and 11 days mashup. And people might say, well, Jeff, they got George Pickens back and Deshaun Elliott and Dante Jackson for that Chiefs game. What the hell happened? They also didn't get to practice. They were glorified
and didn't have their top corner.
Yeah, and Dante Jackson, Joey Porter Jr.
Joey Porter Jr. I mean, that changes everything you have to do, too.
Absolutely. And so on defense, I think it's a matter of getting these guys back, because before all this happened, we were talking about the Steelers as a legitimate contender. And some people might say, well, Jeff, they've been proven to not be that contender. And maybe you're right. But at the same time, when you're missing those pieces, I think if you get them back, you get everyone on the same page again. You have an offensive plan that's got George Pickens, a healthy George Pickens in it, against a defense that the Steelers should have no problem moving the ball against in Cincinnati. I am going to want to see them play a certain way. I don't want to see the defense running around like chickens with their heads cut off before the snap, looking like, they're sending signals on an aircraft carrier. Like, oh, no, you're supposed to be here, and they're disagreeing. You can see them. I don't want to see them giving up easy passes and them looking at each other and just throwing their hands up in the air like, gosh, like you messed it up again. I don't want to see the offense looking like they're not sure what they're supposed to be doing, rushing through bad plays. I want to see the process better. And I just want to see, just give us something to hang our hat on as a fan base, whether it's takeaways again, whether it's not turning the ball over, something. They got to win in those moments. That's what I'm hoping to see. That's the bounce back I want to see. Anyone have anything to add to that before we get to the injury report?
Yeah, I'm going to say something absolutely incredibly ridiculous, but in my head, it makes sense. I'd love to see them on Friday take a couple hours and go to Dave & Buster's.
No, I could see how.
I mean, seriously, I almost feel like they need, we always talk about, hey, players only meetings. Oh my gosh, have a bonding couple hours. Go to the movies, do something as a team, go to the Beehive. I don't care. Just go do something, have fun together, trust each other.
I don't know if we need venereal diseases going through.
I mean, if they just go out on the Clemente Bridge and do trust falls, I don't care. Do something. Do something to go ahead and bond and be back together, get on the same page. Because I feel like anytime there's finger pointing, and when you have Cam doing finger pointing, that's a problem. And we've had the Minka finger pointing when Minka was finger pointing at people at the beginning of the year too. It's time to call each other out and be a family.
Cam's messages. I had someone in my mailbag segment ask me a question about how Cam's not a good leader because all he said was that when 10 people are on the same page and one isn't, that's a recipe for disaster. We've seen that play out the last 3 weeks. Who that one person is, I think you could have a different player every single game. It's been Minka. It's been Patrick Queen. It's been Cam Sutton. It's been a number of players. Like, this isn't new. So I agree with you, though, Brian. They need to do something different. Bill Cowher used to always do movies the last day of their spring workouts. I know Mike Tomlin likes to do the Dave & Buster's thing. I think they went go-karting this year. Maybe they should do that again. I don't know.
Hey, not whack-a-mole. Changes things, changes lives.
And by the way, George T says, I heard that the Beehive closed. We heard from a very reliable source that it's reopening and it's going to be better than ever. So
I hadn't heard that yet. So
We heard that. Remember, it was the summertime. We did like probably way too many minutes on the Beehive.
Yeah.
And someone was in there and said, I know the guy that bought it. He's redoing it and he's reopening it. So we offered, I think at the time, to do like a live show from the Beehive when they reopened it.
Dave did not offer to do it.
I don't think I offered that one.
Jeff and I were like, we'll take one for the team.
Dave would be in his car on a hotspot and we'd be inside the Beehive.
I think inside the Beehive's a hotspot too.
Yeah.
And the one where you need masks for, but let's move on.
All right. So let's go to the injury report. Dave, you ready?
Sure.
We actually have a full injury report again, so we're going to talk about players that have game status and everything. So go ahead and start with the Steelers.
Yeah, we'll start with the Steelers. We will go with the game statuses. 3 players were ruled out. That none of them are on the 53-man roster because the 3 players who had their 21-day window opened, wide receiver Roman Wilson, defensive tackle Logan Lee, linebacker Cole Holcomb. They came back to practice this week, but the Steelers are not bringing them back to the 53-man roster for this game. That's why they have been ruled out. Did we even think that was going to be a thing? No, because
I did in my head a little bit. I was hoping, Roman Wilson could just come and surprise everybody.
Who's he going to get a helmet over top of? That's the biggest thing. I mean, are they going to put him out there instead of Ben Skoranek?
No, he's a superstar right now on that team.
Yeah.
How many players have had their window open and they were active that week this year? One.
And that was who was it?
Was Alex Highsmith on IR this year? No, I could have sworn
he was on IR.
Somebody came back right away.
Yeah.
And was it Dante or Deshaun? No, they weren't on.
I don't know.
IR.
It doesn't matter.
But everything runs together. But yeah, to me, people are like, well, why even bother if you're not going to? Because guess what? The Steelers have this game. They have a playoff game. Hopefully they have more than one. You start their practice now. You don't have to make a decision until the week before the AFC Championship game if you make it that far. If you start to have injuries at some of these positions, you've got a guy that's already there and been practicing that you could bring back. This is not the first time the Steelers have done this with players at the very end of the season. So no surprise there. Outside of those 3, the only other injury status is cornerback Dante Jackson is questionable with the back injury. It's very interesting because he popped up being limited on Wednesday and was limited again on Thursday. He had 2 games in there where he couldn't finish back-to-back games and then missed a game. I think this is discussion worthy. What to do with Dante Jackson?
The value of a defensive back's helmet in terms of being inactive is ridiculous. Like, it's very valuable. If there's any chance that he's not going to get through the game, you make him inactive and say, we're going to go with whether it's Jimmy Pierre, whether it's Corey Trice outside opposite Joey Porter. I don't know. I think Corey Trice would be the guy, but
I do too.
I don't know, but you can't have him out there and he's not going to finish the game again.
Yeah, Corey Trice was the best defender in the secondary against Kansas City, and he wasn't even the guy that started the game. And he was playing against Kansas City. To me, I would, the fact that he's questionable at all, I would already say maybe don't even have Dante Jackson active, because the question is, who doesn't get a helmet? The most the person who hasn't been getting the helmet is Corey Trice, and I think that's the guy that needs to start. And you're like, well, why don't you just have it be James Pierre? Because of what his roles are on special teams. Well, what about Cam Sutton? Someone asked me that today on Twixter or whatever we call it. And I said the reason the Steelers like him so much is because he can basically be the backup at every position in the secondary, except maybe strong safety. And you have other options there, like a Miles Gilbreth. I mean, because he's so versatile as a backup at so many different places. So the question is, if Dante Jackson does play, who doesn't get a helmet? And if they decide to try to give it all, where do they squeeze another one out somewhere else? It's really difficult to try to figure that out. So to me, I think it would be like, hey, there's any question, inactive, Trice is your starter, let's roll.
Yeah. Bryan, thoughts?
If this was not a playoff-worthy team, a playoff-worthy game, and they were out of it, he would be shut down, and that's Dante Jackson. He would be shut down for the season. They would not even screw around with it right now. There would be no way that he would play. Of course, you want to be as full strength as possible, but reps are so important at the end of the week. And we found that out when George Pickens went out at the end of the week and you had guys not taking reps, that hurt the process. And it was the same with Deshaun Elliott. Deshaun Elliott, we found out that he was going to be out very late in the week. I can't remember what week that was. I think that was against Philadelphia as well. And when that happened, there was it was chaos. And so so I don't care who it is, but if he's limited in practice, you need to have a guy having that FP next to him. And even if he's a lesser talent or an up-and-comer like Trice, you need to give him the star treatment. When I say star treatment, the starter's treatment.
And I got to be honest, I mean, outside of Dante Jackson, the Steelers injury report looks great heading into the game. And so, you want to make sure because, we know Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Well, T. Higgins, we'll talk about him in a second, but they're going to be there and it's going to be a challenge. So the secondary is going to have to be up to the task. But Dave, let's go to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we're on to Cincinnati and they got a lot. So first of all, but only one player has been ruled out. That's defensive end Sam Hubbard with a knee.
Who's
Hubbard,
good?
Yeah,
very good.
So that's important. You've got 6 players who are questionable. That's running back Chase Brown, who has not practiced all week with his ankle. That would really surprise me if he's going to be able to play.
Did you see him limp off the other day?
Yeah.
Did you see that injury?
Yeah.
That looked significant.
It did. It really did. And then you've got T. Higgins with ankle/knee. He's questionable. I got a feeling he's going to play.
Yeah.
That's just me. Then you got wide receiver Charlie Jones with a groin that's questionable. Gotta love the Steelers on their website. They have defensive tackle Amarius Mims. I haven't refreshed my page in 4 hours, so they might have fixed it by now. That's offensive tackle Amarius Mims with the ankle /
I bet they
hand.
didn't fix it.
Huh?
I bet they didn't fix it.
I don't want to do it and wait forever for it to load.
I will look. I will look.
Okay, but they have him as a defensive tackle. He is questionable. That's one that wouldn't surprise me if he can't go. Tight end Drew Sample with a groin is questionable. And here's one that's interesting. Cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt, who's probably their best player in the secondary, wouldn't you say, Brian?
Yes, I would.
That he popped up and is questionable. He limited with an ankle today, Thursday. Now, the story was that I saw from, who is it, Ben Baby, that's the guy that covers the Bengals for ESPN.
Yes.
Said that it was very interesting that he showed up as limited because he was fine with nothing during the portion of practice open to the media. That means he might have heard it decently towards, in the later parts of practice. We don't really know. If someone got better details that are more than just rumors, that would be really interesting. So that's one to pay attention. Maybe it was nothing, or maybe it was the fact that they labeled him as questionable, that tells you that there's something that they're going to have to double check to make sure he can go.
Yeah. They did not fix it, by the way, Dave.
Okay.
I would have put money on it that they would not have fixed it. So
defensive tackle Amarius Mims, according to Steelers.com.
Here's what's sad. He's listed as the defensive tackle every day.
Cut and base component. What's interesting is I talked with B-Dirt, Brandon Harriet, and people know him from the homies here on Steel Curtain Network, but he covers the Bengals for Fans First Sports Network. And he thinks that Chase Brown is not going to play. If he does, he's going to be severely hampered. He thinks T. Higgins is going to play. He said Amarius Mims has this big thing on his hand. He said it's tough to try and corral a pass rusher when you don't really have that. He said that it's just not a good spot for the Bengals right now. Brian, what's your take on the Bengals injuries?
Well, first and foremost, Zach Taylor came out either yesterday or today and said, oh, those guys are going to be game time decisions. But this time of year, when it's a divisional opponent, it's always going to be a game time decision. I think they know. I would be shocked if Chase Brown plays, but with everything on the line, do they try to go? T. Higgins, I mean, take him off the injury report. I mean, I would be shocked if he doesn't play, because that's and he I tell you what, if I didn't know better, I would have thought he was the superstar and Jamar Chase was not. Watching that Denver game, I mean, he was incredible. And then when you watched Mike Tomlin talking about the Joey Porter matchup against T. Higgins and talking about when you're going against, he didn't call him a thug, but he called him something like that. Maybe he did
call him to Shaq.
He called him a goon, I think.
Goon, yeah, that goon meant, yeah. So that'll be interesting in the offseason when they're trying to court him to Pittsburgh. Yeah. But now, the injury report, I don't get too caught up in it, but just the eye test with Chase Brown, I would be really surprised. And I think that is just a huge, that would be huge for the Steelers. You always want to play a team at full strength. You don't want to win because of another guy is out. But if he's out, that gives the Steelers a little bit more help on defense, because he has finally settled into that Joe Mixon role a whole lot better than he did at the beginning of the season. They were really missing Joe Mixon at the beginning of the season. They're missing Joe Mixon less because Chase Brown is doing Joe Mixon things now. Now, I'm not saying he is Joe Mixon. I'm just saying he is doing he has really turned into a different player, half one and half two. So Amarius Mims, that's another thing. I just worry about any time that I never get too high when you see that an offensive tackle or an offensive lineman is out for a certain team, because that always seems to blow up in the Steelers' face. When you're like, oh yeah, they're gonna have 17 sacks in this game, and they get one. And yeah, that's because for some reason they don't do well against backup tackles. I don't know what it is, but I've
hey, TJ Watt's a guy that does a lot of film, and if he doesn't have a lot of film on the guy, then he kind of doesn't have the advantage anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But I will say this, that when you're looking at whoever on this Bengals team, and you're looking at an injury report, this seems to be the most significant injury report that we've seen in 18 weeks. I can't think of there might have been others that a team was really beat up, but they seem more beat up than usual here.
Yeah, it's fair. Dave, any final thoughts there? Or are you ready to take a break?
No, honestly, the thing is, yeah, there's some really key guys. I think the Chase Brown thing is a big deal. Like I said, T. Higgins would be a big deal, but nothing is as important as Joe Burrow. I mean, if we were talking about, is it going to be Joe Burrow or not, then you're talking about a completely different philosophy, what they're going to do. Anybody else, they'll still try to do what they do without that player, with the next guy up. So the one that would change your game plan the most isn't someone that you're worried about. So the Steelers just got to go out there like they were going to, whether these guys are ready or not, or available or not.
All right. Sounds good. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to have the over-under game, and we're going to do our predictions. We have going back in time with Brian Davis and Dave Schofield with the trivia. So we'll be right back. If you're watching live, we're not going anywhere. And on the audio side, we'll be right back. All right, we are back, Steeler fans. Thank you all for being patient. It is time for the over-under game. Dave, it's been a while. Have you updated the standings?
I did. There wasn't a lot to update when we did this last time. Although, once again, Bryan is all but completely running away with it because, believe it or not, getting 3 correct out of the 6, Bryan, was a huge win. Bryan got 3, I got 2, and Jeff got 1.
Yeah.
Is how it went. Poor Jeff has really. I'm trying to think when was Jeff winning?
Last year, Jeff dominated though, didn't he?
No, that was
Dave
me.
Dave won
Yeah.
last year.
Jeff was winning in week 5 and has just kind of fallen off a cliff. But
Well, at some point, I get sick of everyone agreeing, and so I just go with the opposite answer.
yeah. Well, but I'm winning all right now with the game predictions between the winner or the over under, because I was the only one who got one right last time because I picked Kansas City to win and cover.
I don't have to go first though.
No, you
don't
don't. I
have a
don't
problem.
You know what, Brian? I try to be ready enough that I make my pick regardless of what you say, unless I'm really not sure what to do, and then I wait.
I'll let Jeff go
No,
first.
no, I think Jeff knows pretty much what he's going to go with because when he makes the lines. So, but that's where we are. So overall, Brian's got 54. I've got 45. Jeff's got 44. And when it comes to the actual game picks, I've got 15. Jeff's got 14, and Brian's got 13.
So I could rest my players again this week.
You can rest your players.
All right, so let's get this week started.
You're up 9. You'd have to do really, really bad if because we only got at most 2 weeks left. So
yeah,
let's do it.
All right, here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers turnovers, turning the football over. It's a common trend with this team, dating back to the Jets game. Russell Wilson's first start. Last time they didn't have a turnover. Brian, the line is 1.5, over under.
I'm actually going to go under. And the reason I will do that is because this is not a turnover happy group on the defensive side. If I'm correct. Now, Hendrickson's the kind of guy that can get a strip sack anytime. I feel like with the extra time, with the mini bye, I have a feeling that there's been a lot of stuff going on. I have a feeling that I wish I remembered his name. Omar Epps. I'm not talking about Mike Tomlin's Omar Epps, but I'm talking about Omar Epps in the program where they're having certain guys holding onto the ball and going to their car holding a ball, and you have to try to punch it out. That's kind of I feel like they're back to basics. So let me say under. King of wishful thinking. Go West, baby.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm also going under now. The Bengals have really been taking the ball away a lot. I outlined that recently since they played the Steelers, but they've also been turning it over a lot too. So they're not as good on the plus side as you thought they might be. With including the game with the Steelers and up through there. But because it's been a problem with the Steelers, and this is even something so much so that Mike Tomlin addressed it, this is going to be a point of emphasis. So I'm not saying they're going to play completely clean, but I think they're not going to turn it over twice. If they do, I don't expect them to win.
I've got it under. If it was at a 0.5, I have it under too. I think they're going to have a clean game. I think that barring, like you said, a fumble, something like that, which we've seen those, we'll see, but we all have the under. Let's go to Pittsburgh Steelers takeaways now. The Steelers defense takeaways have kind of dried up a little bit. They did not have any, I don't think, against the Chiefs, if I recall, the last week.
They did not. First time since they played the Colts, they didn't have one.
All right. So I've got this line at 1.5, though. The Bengals have turned it over. Brian, what do you think? Over under?
Yeah, there's a part of me that is saying go with the under, but my head is saying if they have any chance in winning this game, and I think they have a chance to win this game, go with the over. So I'm going over.
All right, Dave?
Yeah, I'm going over as well. I don't have my numbers from Pittsburgh Standard Time in front of me because I'm on this page on my notebook. But yeah, the Bengals they've been having some takeaways on defense, but they have had plenty of turnovers as well. So they were not a team that was turning the ball over a lot before they played the Steelers the last time. They went, I think, from 7th in the league to 14th from the time the Steelers played them last time to now. So they are someone, and they've got to push it. They've got to take chances because they need to stay alive. Even though I haven't said it yet, even if the Bengals pull out the win, I still don't think they're going to get in. I really don't. But I have it as an over. I think that the Steelers will land in the plus side here, and to do that, I think it might take them getting 2.
I'm going to go under. I think they get 1. I think they get 1 in this game.
Well, But if they hold like you said, 0 in the turn and turning it over, so you still have them in the plus side, which would be a big thing.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Russell Wilson passing yards. 225.5 is the line. Bryan, over under.
Okay, hold on. Steelers passing yards, right?
Russell Wilson passing yards.
Oh, well, sorry. I started to write the wrong thing. 225.5, right?
Yes. Go ahead, Bryan.
I think he's going to be throwing the ball this week, even though you're going to try to control it as much as you can with the run. This is a Bengals team that you don't want to shoot out, but it always has the making of being a shootout when you're playing Cincinnati. So I think he's going to have to put it up. I also really think that there are going to be some moon balls in this game that will connect, because my final thoughts will reflect this as well. But I watched every single snap of that Denver game. And what I saw was really when Denver was getting things together on them, they were throwing deep to Marvin Mims. I can see a guy like Calvin Austin going off in this game. I can see a guy like George Pickens going off in this game, because you're going to have to throw deep in this game. This team can be beaten going deep. So I think there's going to be numbers going that way. I wouldn't be surprised if that's north of 250, Jeff. So I'm not going to say that it's just barely over. No, it's going to be over.
All right, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at it that you're like, well, even in overtime, Nick's only threw for 219 last week against them and everything. And people are like, oh, Russell Wilson, no, he's done. He's bottom line is they're either going to turn it around or they're not. 226 is not a huge amount to get to. So therefore, Bryan, I didn't even write down what you said because I looked up a number. You said over, right? Because I'm not going to catch up any ground on Bryan because I've already written my stuff down and we're agreeing on everything. I'm going to take the over as well. I'm not saying he goes huge over like he did the last game, although he could. But I think it will be over that.
I'm going to go under because I want to be different here and I'm trying to gain ground. So I'm going to go under, but not by much. We'll say like 220. Mm-hmm. I think they're gonna run the ball well, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, I think that maybe it'll be a game where he doesn't have to throw. That would be great. If he doesn't have to chuck the ball a ton, would be awesome. Especially the cold weather they're calling for. It's gonna be frigid this weekend in Pittsburgh.
Very friggin' cold. I mean, like maybe not even 20 degrees.
Oh my God. Why am I going to this game?
I know.
All right, let's go to the next
one. That's
what
George said, so that's why I'm not going to this game.
George Pickens receiving yards, 75.5. That's the line. Bryan, over under.
I think he needs to go over, but I'm in a spot where I think he's capable of amazing things. I don't trust him right now because of just the stupid crap he did today. Just the maturity. It's really tough to believe in George right now. So I'm going to go under.
All right, Dave.
Yeah, you say about the stupid crap he did today. That's the kind of times when you see them actually then feature him a lot. So I'm going to go over.
I'm going over as well. I think that he's going to have a good game, and I think he'll get over 80. All right, let's go to Steelers team rushing yards. I was really kind of back and forth. The Steelers have not. They've had good numbers against Kansas City. Those numbers were inflated. Dave wrote that article.
Oh, yeah. 45 yards in the final drive that meant nothing.
So I've got it at 145.5. That's I've got that line for against the Bengals. 145.5. The Steelers team rushing yard.
145.5. Sorry, I'm looking up stats rather than writing it down.
That's fine. Go ahead, Bryan.
That's hefty to me, and so I'm going to say a little south of that. They'll break 100, but I think 145 is a lot.
Okay, Dave.
You know what? I'm going to go over. Try to make up a little bit of ground here on Bryan. I was a little bit torn. I mean, they didn't rush for that many the last time, but I think. I mean. The only thing is if they use their running backs a ton in the passing game and they get them their touches via receptions, I don't know that they'll then continue to get to give them huge touches by handing the ball off as much. So that's going to be the big difference. Is I think the running backs are going to get a lot of yards like that, but unfortunately, it might be some in the passing game. So I'm really not confident about this one, but I'm gonna go West, and I'm gonna say over.
I think
Over
you're going to
is-
have Justin too.
Yeah.
Over as well.
Mhm.
I'm taking the over as well. I think that the Bengals have to come into this game saying we're not going to let the Steelers dink and dunk to the running backs like they did the entire first half the last time they played and just have all these receiving yards. So they're going to have to try and stack the box. I think the Steelers are going to be able to run the ball. Let's go to our last one. Justin Fields snaps. Everyone talked about Mike Tomlin saying the changes could happen. Justin Fields is healthy now. And I think the Steelers, a change that we could see is I think we could see an increased usage of that Justin Fields package. The question is Justin Fields snaps. How many snaps does he play? I've got the line at 2.5. Brian, what do you think?
I'm going to say 3. So let's go over on this.
All right.
I-
Dave, what about you?
It could even be more than 3, but I'm going to go over the 2.5.
I'll go under then. All right, so there
I
you
feel
have.
bad.
Mm.
No, there you have. Over under is done in the books for the regular season. We'll still be doing this in at least one playoff game. So now let's turn our attention to our predictions. The Steelers and the Bengals at Acrisure Stadium. Remember that, folks. The Steelers are getting 2 points at home against the 8-8 Bengals with an over under of 48 points. 48 points. I feel like that number
Okay.
is very low.
So I was looking up something. What did you say the line? I got the
Steelers are
48.
getting 2. Steelers are
Okay.
getting 2, and the over under is 48.
Gotcha.
So, Brian, what's your prediction?
Gosh, that over under I think is ridiculous. I don't want this to be a shootout. I think it's going to. I'm going to go ahead and say the Steelers 28, the Bengals 27.
Oh, okay.
So take
That-
the over and take the win.
Okay.
Dave?
All right. Well, this is what I decided. Who knows what to think right now? Are we going to see the Pittsburgh Steelers of the last 3 games, or are we going to see the Pittsburgh Steelers from before that? So would you take the time off and everything else, you would hope that they could do that. But you also know they are just as capable of not hitting 20 points because they haven't done it in 3 games. And it makes it really, really tough. So ultimately, I'm going to choose my winner based on I should have stuck to my picks from the day that the schedule came out, because I'd be sitting at 14-2 right now if I would have done that. So I'm going to hopefully make it 15-2, and I'm going to take the Steelers, and I'm going to go 34-26. So that'll also be the over.
All right. Dave and I have the same Steelers total, 34 points. I have the Bengals scoring 28. So also hammering I just think that 48 line is just really
I think that's
low.
pretty low.
I don't know why, but maybe we're wrong. And
No,
maybe
because they don't have confidence in the Steelers scoring points. Honestly.
I get it. So 34-28 is what I have, and the Bengals and 28 points. Will that be enough for the defense to calm the heathens of the Steelers fan base that are calling for the defense to be completely overhauled? I don't know, but still, I think the Steelers win. I think they get some momentum heading into the playoffs. So, all right, Brian, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, we're doing 90 seconds. I'm going to cut you off if you don't.
Okay.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Let's go to the craziest game of all time, and I am going to go ahead and go against the grain. I like to go home and away, but this is an away game. This, to me, is a playoff game. I know it's not. Let's go back to January 9th, 2016. The Steelers at the Bengals in the AFC wildcard game. Chris Boswell comes out with 3 straight field goals. Mike Munchak grabs a dude by the hair on the sidelines. Martavis Bryant makes one of the greatest catches of all time. It's 15-0 at the end of the 3rd quarter, and it all falls apart. You have mayhem. Antonio Brown gets CTE. Joey Porter makes a return from retirement, comes on the field. Burfict does Burfict thing. Pac-Man does Pac-Man things. My wife slept through the entire thing as everybody cheered. The Steelers win in the craziest game ever. It was a final of 18-16 with a Boz field goal at the end.
Nice. 1 minute. One
That was
minute
pretty-
even.
But there's one thing you didn't mention. What was the
Ben.
biggest play of that game?
Oh, Shazier and the fumble. And
Yes.
oh my gosh, Perfect running into the tunnel.
Yep.
Ben getting hurt, coming
Landry
back.
throwing a
Landry
pick.
Jones was freaking playing.
And then them throwing beer at a hurt Ben.
Yeah.
But Ben comes back on a white horse with a flaming sword and leads them to victory.
I got to say one more thing, and this is very controversial. This doesn't count against my 90. This is controversial because everybody talked about how wonderful the Bengals fans were during the DeMar Hamlin thing a couple years ago, how wonderful they were. Well,
Yeah.
they booed Shazier when he was paralyzed going off the field. They threw beer at Ben, who was on a stretcher. Yeah, I do not. I would never give them props for that.
Cue the Escalooser.
Yep.
You,
Hey,
yes.
guys, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to bring up a comment. Bob Yeager wants to know who recovered the fumble.
Well, who was the running back that fumbled it? It was
Jeremy Hill.
Yeah, Jeremy Hill fumbled. Shazier forced the fumble. Was it Willie Gay?
Or was it Vince Williams?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
All right, I gotta look it up.
I'm looking it up.
All right,
I'm looking-
Dave, you go ahead and do trivia. I'll look it up.
Well, because Jeff doesn't pay attention to my trivia anyway. No, this is good trivia for you here, Jeff. Okay, Steelers finishing their season against the Cincinnati, their regular season against the Cincinnati Bengals. How many times have they done that before?
Oh my goodness, a lot. I would probably say in history, probably. Well, I'll just go 6.
Bob Yeager says it was Ross Cockrell. Jeff,
I'm trying to find it.
and as soon as he
He's
said it, I think he's
probably
right.
right.
I think he's right. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. So, what did you say, Brian? What was your number?
6 maybe.
6. How many times did they finish their season against their regular season against Cincinnati Bengals there, Jefferson?
Is this Tomlin era or just in general?
In general.
10.
Okay. The answer might surprise you is 3.
Oh.
And they are almost all in the Tomlin era. Because the first time they did was in 2006. Okay. Now all these games were actually played in December in these seasons but that was when the last one they did in 2006, 2014, and most recently, if you all can remember, people hanging out in the stands. My brother-in-law was one of them. What year did they play the Bengals at home?
That was when they were watching the scoreboard to see if they got in the playoffs.
18.
Yeah.
Because who was on the sidelines in a fur coat?
Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't there. He left already.
Oh no, not at the end. He wasn't there.
I know.
But
He wasn't even in the stadium. He left the.
Yeah, he was
left
there at
the-
one point in the game, but he wasn't
Right.
there at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so people know, overall, when the Steelers play the Bengals the last week of the season, they are 3-0. The last 2 have been at home. The first one was an overtime 23-17 win in Cincinnati in 2006. So let's see if the Steelers can repeat that this year.
Can I throw something interesting in there, Dave?
Okay.
It was until 2022 they had never opened the season with the Bengals.
That's
And they
true
were
too.
1-0 against the Bengals.
Yeah. That they didn't open with them. They didn't close with them very often.
Wow.
So, which is surprising when you get all those division matchups they want to do at the end of the season. But most of the time, believe it or not, it's that the Steelers mainly finish the season against the Browns.
The Browns, yeah.
The most.
All right. Good trivia. Good stuff. Is that it?
Did you confirm that it was Ross Cockrell?
I haven't found it yet. I
Oh, you
I
didn't
looked
find
at
it?
one article and no one has said it. It sounds right. We'll go with it.
It does. I think he screwed up in that game, and then he had redemption with that fumble recovery.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's do some final thoughts. Bryan, I'll give you the full frontal ones this week.
All right. So let's take a look at what the Steelers have to do this week, who they have to throw the ball to, how they have to come together. And it's simple. I think you can take a lot from the last couple of weeks of the Bengals, what they have done. And they have eked out wins. They eked out a win against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. They should have lost that game, and it was a fluke towards the end. You had a dink, and you had Broncos fans who I have friends that are Broncos fans. I do a show, Bronco fan, Jess Place, on the Fans First Football show, and I send them, all you needed was one first down. That's ridiculous. And the Bengals, everybody's worried about the Steelers playing poorly and backing into the playoffs. I feel like even though the Bengals have been winning, they have not been doing it impressively. So what I'm looking at for the Steelers is to put all the BS behind them. Even the BS that happened today with George Pickens at the podium, put all that behind, come together and realize why you're here. You've got a chance to change this entire season with one game and go in on a high note into the playoffs. It's so much better than limp it in. So reach down deep, boys, and bring it out of you, but bring it out of you together. Go into this game as a team and go into the playoffs as a team.
All right. Very good. Dave, you get the felt up variety of final thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I can let you know that I can confirm where I found the play that it was Jeremy Hill after rushing for 6 yards was tackled by Ryan Shazier, who forced the fumble, and it was recovered by Ross Cockrell. What's crazy? It was the very next play after that interception by Burfict of Landry Jones, which is crazy because Landry Jones was the very first play he threw the interception, and then the very next play it was the fumble coming back. So that's just one of those crazy games.
That feels like the Baltimore exchange in Baltimore a few weeks ago when you had Minka Fitzpatrick's interception and then the pick six right afterwards.
Yeah, I mean that was 2 plays later. Yeah, exactly. So where it's just they're happening right back to back. But you know what? That was the 2015 season. This is all about 2024. This is about the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can get going in the right direction. It's all about getting hot at the end of the season. And the Steelers have been ice cold for 3 weeks in December. Are you going to get moving or are you going to not? So many people have already decided what the Steelers are going to do in the playoffs. And I said before playoffs, we're talking playoffs, that I'm not, my expectations for the next weekend, even though we know the Steelers are in the postseason, my expectations are going to ride so much on how they respond in this game. The Steelers could win this game, but not in a good manner. That's going to still not give me much confidence going forward. So it's really about how the Pittsburgh Steelers play in this game, where they are trending. You have been on the decline for 3 straight weeks. You've got to make that turn. You've got to change paths. You've got to self-correct and get going in the right direction. Yes, it's the only game left in the 2024 season, and it's being played in 2025. But as we've said so many times, this is the most pivotal game that the Steelers have had so far, because right now it really is. You've got to get going and get into the postseason in the right direction.
Well said. Well said. Bryan's going to be at the game. Dave and I will be on the post-game show Saturday night, so make sure you join us there. And we'll have everything covered for you leading up to the playoffs. Win or lose, we'll be here no matter what. SteelCurtainNetwork.com. Give that website a check. That's SteelCurtainNetwork.com. And check out all of our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Steel Curtain Network. All right, gentlemen, very good show. Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
We'll see you next week on another Steelers preview. Everyone take it easy.
Steel Curtain Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.